How do I call this podcast episode? I was thinking about two sages, one mystic. Sounds good, right?
That's pretty good.
With the title, he walked in on it. Something like.
I prefer a guardian between us, but I guess a mystic works.
Hey, small, little, petite, and I'm up for it. So
I got the handle a guardian.
Dude, it's a vacuum. You know what I mean?
That's the fun.
First and foremost, Zeth, thanks for being here, dude. It's been a thing in the making. This actually, just to give you a little bit of a heads up, I pitched this idea to Grim months ago, and one of the first talks we ever had was, okay, what do we do with this if it actually goes somewhere? And we were thinking, okay, the very first episode, like I didn't tell Grim, but I knew deep down inside of me, I knew that first episode, class episode is going to be Sage. It chronologically goes into this, and I talked to him. Wouldn't it be fun if we get to the Sage episode eventually, and we get someone big? We're both like immediately, yeah, we're getting Zethiann if we ever get one. So this is like a long time in the making, and we kind of go full circle on it, dude. So thanks for being here. It actually means a lot.
I know this gonna be fun. I know a little bit about Sage, but I'd like to learn more about it.
Oh, now, no, dude, you're tempting me to ask. Do you think you can handle a bunch of questions, maybe?
Well, it depends how deep you're planning to go. If there's surface level questions, definitely.
Grim, what about you? Do you know anything about Sage?
I would say I know about 20%.
Bold claims, sir. Bold claims.
It is very deep.
I'll tell you this, the 20% that you know is the 20% that I knew when I approached this lore preparation for this episode. So let me just tell you, dude, this goes beyond and above deep. So, you know what how I want to start this? First and foremost, introducing the Crabman here, because let's be honest, I've been in Sakraya the past 2 days and it still reeks of him. All right, I'm just gonna say,
I was that pungent, huh?
It was like that, dude. It was like that, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Grim Verdict podcast, and we have today a very special guest alongside my good friend Grimmkill, my fellow co-host. We have Zethiann, the Crabman, the Sage Daddy himself. Zeth, how you doing, man?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you for asking.
Good stuff, good stuff. So, ladies and gentlemen, last time we checked a very important episode, and that episode was called The Fall of Elvia, which is a very interesting lore bit. This time around, we have a little bit of a different fiasco. See, one of the most important bits of lore, whilst that is Elvia, and understanding basically how the world came to be and all of the issues that basically rained down from Elvia, we have to talk today about, well, a guy whose first quote we ever got to see, almost the first quote, was, and I begin the quote saying, "Do not put your faith in gods, for gods are incompetent. Sage." That's basically.
You just call me incompetent? What the heck?
No. Listen. You might not be the sage that you think you are, Zethiann, and we're gonna start a little bit. We're gonna start a little bit onto that. So,
a wizard or witch?
You are everything and nothing at the same time. A pure paradox in existence. So, ladies and gentlemen, to give a little bit of world building, because that's the best way, in my opinion, to always approach such a lore story. A little bit of world building is to kind of understand where, we are currently right now, and most importantly, where is kind of Sage from. So, we're talking at the very least 8,000 years ago, somewhere around that period. Bear in mind that a very important thing about BDO lore, if you're looking into the history of things, it's super important to understand that there is no recorded history before Sage. He pretty much started recorded history. You can kind of say that is true. So it's very important to also mention, we're in a world which otherworldly forces call Idana. And we're called Idana because of basically what Sage pretty much did in that regards, which we're going to get into in a bit. So earlier, Zeth, if you remember, I asked you to kind of check the previous episode because we will need to know a mention, which is very important, about a deity known as the Dark Goddess. She is very, very relevant. And it is something that, honestly, we can't even move forward to fully understand Sage. And most important, Atoraxian, because he made it. So before we jump into this, How much do you know about Sage, Zeth? Like, what do you know? Because if you remember, we were on that 9-year anniversary video. We were chatting, and I was talking to you about Dehkia's lantern about a year ago.
Yeah.
And brilliant. Aside of that, like, what would you say that you're aware of Sage?
Well, I know he was part of an ancient civilization that's now extinct. He was, they were pretty advanced,
Yeah.
and he was like an astronomer of that time, and he looked up into the heavens, saw this asteroid hurtling towards this planet that
Okay.
was surrounded by this dark energy, I'm assuming black spirits, and
Okay.
he wanted to prepare for that impending invasion. So he created all the ancient weapon facilities around to train himself, but also made like a genetic copy of himself, of which he put into the cube, so he could also emerge once the asteroid arrived, and he wouldn't be a feeble old man. He'd be ready to fight it. And something along the way messed up. I think one of his clones accidentally or something messed up, and he came out too late.
It's not bad.
It's not bad, actually. Grim, what about you? What about you, man?
Same sort of thing, but I obviously know a lot more backstory, like the comet itself being Godoride, stuff like that.
That's a load of crap because it isn't.
Oh,
How did you get to that? I'm interested. Now I am interested in it. Well, here's the thing. I guess it's a very important distinction to make because that is actually lore crucial here, Grim. The Black Star meteorite bears no relation to the Godoride Black Star. So here's like this. To make a proper differentiate between both of them, the Black Star meteorite is the Star's End meteorite. The comet with the Dark Invaders is the other thing. Like, both of those happened roughly pretty much in 8 millennia apart. So yeah, that's a little bit of super important thing to get.
didn't they say the real one, the Godoride encased one, was actually in Demonlands?
No. That's the Black Star. That is literally the Black Star above
Oh.
Star's End. Yeah.
Okay.
So I guess we kind of got to start first and foremost with, as I said, a little bit of world building about Sage. What Zeth said is absolutely true. He is a part of the ancient civilization. He is an ancient. Now, an ancient is what is being called as the people of old. Like, they were big, towering stature. They were not simply advanced Zeth. They were the advanced ones. Think of it like this. You know, in real life, we have, especially, not sure if you follow up with these things, Zeth and Graham, but in real life right now we have recent discoveries of this thing known as the Younger Dryas period, where something apocalyptic happened and entire civilizations that were almost as if up on our tail were eradicated. Like, new theories emerge. The ancients are kind of like this. Not that something happened necessarily for them to, unalive or whatever, but the thing is, it's a common trope. They were far too advanced for their time, and compared to us right now, us rediscovering their knowledge and their secrets makes us look like babies. This is like the capacity in which that place was. At the time of Sage, we are under the Cabuan calendar, and we are going to talk about the Cabuanian years. So this is going to be super important to get you to understand what happens. And also, you really need to kind of follow, because Sage is complicated throughout the entirety of the thing. To put it mildly, we're going to start Sage's theory and lore. It's theory and lore. Sage's lore with the Cabuanian year of 286. This is a long, long time ago. And I'm going to read a specific part of his entire lore, word to word. It starts on as such. On a particularly bright and sunlit spring day, I stood atop a podium, my intellect astounded a countless numbers of youthful eyes that had gathered before me. Then a pitch-black sky, ashen winds, blood-filled screams. The eyes of all life in the world were stained red, and my soon regained their golden light, and I found myself with youth that seemed eternal. This is the beginning of Rook's Maha Dehkia. This is the name of Sage, his entire thing. He is Rook's Maha Dehkia, the pinnacle of society, astonishing intellect, charisma. He is 7 feet tall. He is like everything you could hope. If you could ever put a Greek god types of thing, he would be it. He is it. There is everything about that entire shtick. So a little bit about the Kabul year 286. Well, Sage was just chilling. He is pinnacle of society at this point. His intellect is unparamount. He knows things profound about reality. He understands left and right how things go by. And he is a part of, whether or not he is Kabuan, we do not know. Whether or not he is of an Astron Empire, we do not know. We just follow the calendar that gives us a little bit of an idea. So the Dark Invaders are coming. The Ancients fall to the Red Eyes. But here's the thing. Sage expresses this literally as, oh, I was just chilling and they came. So this is a little bit of, wait, wasn't he prepped for them? Wasn't he seeing them? Wasn't he looking at the telescope and was studying them? Well, we're going to see that in a bit.
Didn't he do a bit of doomsaying about that? And everyone just didn't take him seriously?
Oh, he did that and plenty. But let's continue a little bit with the story, because the Dark Invaders come, and the Ancient fall to the Red-Eyed Thirst, which is something, you know, the Dark Spirits, they come through. We all seen in the game and the lore a little bit left and right, and we all know what it is to be abducted by a Black Spirit. You kind of lose sense. It is horror incarnate. You become mad, stricken with desire of destruction. It's greed manifest. This is the entirety of it. So the Ancient fall to this prey. And of course, Sage size return to their normal wants quite fast because, well, Sage turns out to be what we like to call an Idana. An Idana is the people around the entirety of BDO that can indeed, for a fact, control the Black Spirit, or rather reach a symbiosis with it. Think of, you know, Venom, Eddie Brock in the symbiote. It's kind of like they can coexist together, right? Instead of one consuming the other like a parasite, in a sense. So a Black Spirit crosses paths with Sage, and Sage, due to the nature of what Idana is, he subdues the Black Spirits and gains eternal life. This is the popular trope in BDO. Whenever you have a Black Spirit, you are basically blessed with eternal life up until your natural death, which can be you're slain, which is unnatural, but he can leave and you can, you know, you can basically die. And all around Sage, everyone are losing it. Like, it's not in factually all, some regain their senses in the same way like he does, because Idanas are numerous and wide in between. You know, it's nothing like exclusive to Sage. You know, every once in 1,000 you could meet one. It's a random number that I just picked, but you get the idea. So in order for him to be able to get rid of this, because he sees, you know, he's a people-oriented person to the extent of, oh wow, humanity is literally in an apocalypse state right now. We are post-nuclear. What is going on? Why am I one of the few, if not the only one in my vicinity? What is going on? And eventually we believe that he's reconnecting with other Idanas, and a tale comes through. And a tale that there is a place in the world which has been recently discovered that holds incredible amounts of knowledge. This particular place, of course, being Atoraxian. So Sage is like, you know what? One of the best places to go right now seems like it. If people are looking for ways to cure this, then I might as well join the bandwagon and be a part of that. So Sage travels to it, recovers all knowledge that possibly be used by him to be able to cure all of these tainted ones still by the Black Spirit, and it kind of works. And, you know, good job, world saved. He's capable of doing all of this, and Rook continues to live for around 100 years or more. So, you know, his mind idles. You know, he is eternally youthful, but, you know, something inside his head is not ticking the way it used to be, and that is that particular famous thing, which is you might be blessed with eternal life, but your mind will eventually give in. And it's very important to say that at this point, the Black Spirits decides to abandon Sage, and Sage kind of accepts this because he understands. He himself states that, yeah, okay, I see where this is going. My body that can basically fit to lead an entire civilization. You know what? I can actually read the entirety of the quote. It's going to be better. On a summer day where even a single breeze felt precious, the flowers in the kingdom of Idana had still yet to wilt. While my body, fit to lead an entire civilization, was still young and magnificent at that, my mind was gradually crumbling away. Then the blood-eyed being in my head bid me farewell, and my body slowly welcomed death. Rook's Maha Dehkia passes. Right, so this is Sage lore. Thanks for coming, Zeth. It was all good, fun. All right, we're going to see you next time. All right, so Zeth, like, at this point, you know what Sage does do? Sage decides to just simply perish. You know, he has no say in this. Of course, that fate comes very fast on him. Because think about it. Everything is going to catch up to you super fast. Whenever you have an entity which keeps you youthful, the moment that leaves, a second is a year, 2 seconds is a decade. You know, it could be something like this. So it catches up to him so fast, and he accepts this. But, you know, BDO being Black Desert Online, we have to go into Kabuan year 237. So the past year, which I just described to you, whenever he, you know, was bewitched by the Black Spirit, was 286. The year in which he died was 381. Now we're in 237, which is basically 150 years almost earlier. And we are going to begin with a quote. On an autumn day where fallen leaves rustle with passing footfalls, I was still alive. But soon I would have no choice except to promise to the world that I would return again. Rook's Maha Dehkia wakes up with no memory or recollection, only a small echoes of past, present, and future. Here is where the story of Sage actually begins. 150 years earlier than what he originally experienced. Inside the Ivory Tower is basically a place where Sage studies with all of his ancient colleagues. You could just say it like this, for lack of a better term. You know, he's a part of a civilization which is pretty much a pinnacle. And he earns a little bit of a title. And that title is the oddball of the Ivory Tower because he has eccentric views. So Sage at this point is a little bit of a, okay, so I just woke up. I have no idea what's going on with me. I am pretty much going to go about and do what Sage does. So think of it like, okay, what would Sage do if he loses his memories? Well, he would still be Sage. He would still be information driven. He would still be basically what Sage is. So a very important thing to say is that, as Zethiann earlier mentioned very well, he's an astrologist. Or was astronomy. Yeah, he's into astronomy. Astrology was a different thing. My bad. He's into astronomy, and he creates a very interesting contraption, which he names, and I kid you not, this is within his lore, and I couldn't pronounce it the first time, but I'll try again. He creates a contraption named Atoraxian. All right, that's the name of his telescope. I'm just saying, I have no idea. I have no idea.
Does it have any relation to the one in Valencia?
Okay, called red-handed. I have no idea. Okay. It's named Laffy Bed Mountains. I doubt that Laffy would lie about it, kind of. At least I don't think it is. But, you know, Sage Gates dips into the entirety of studying the stars and the cosmos. And, you know, he makes a proper decision to go about this. This would be his career, essentially. And one day, regular like all others, while studying the cosmos, he witnesses something that sheds him to the core. And he utters one word alone, and that word is doomed. That was what he concluded the moment he witnessed what he saw. And on the night where bleak darkness devoured every trace, I'm quoting right now, of starlight, a mysterious red star, never before seen, glimmered alone within the constellation of the Stealing Stone in the north region of the sky. This is what Sage saw, and he figured out its trajectory. He is incredibly ahead, despite the fact that his peers kind of belittle him and they don't really look into what he says is true. How many people could peer review a guy who is so ahead of his civilization? It is very, very hard. And
so, do we know if he saw the Black Star or the Godoride?
We know that he saw the Black Star is the Godoride. All right, yeah. So the Black Star is the
encasing,
Godoride.
Right?
Yeah, he is the encasing, yes. But the meteorite which he saw was the one with the Dark Invaders. And the first thing that he came... Bear in mind, remember, this is 8,000 years apart.
Yeah.
So, like, you know, that's two very different things. So he studied the energies around this meteorite, and he managed to figure out something very important, Zeth, and it's something that I think you said, I think I caught you yesterday on your stream. You said that it was 49 years, or I think it was Grim, maybe Grim. It took 49 years for the meteorite to arrive, and this is super important. He studies the energies. Orbits. Indeed, 49 orbits from afar, and he predicted that they would destroy the world in under 7 days, precisely 3, actually. Like he said, they will destroy the world in 3 days. So this is something super big because, like, how would he know the 3 days? How would he know that 49 years? This is advanced beyond advanced for the time in which they are in. Bear in mind, this is 150 years before all of this takes place. Or at least we think so.
So 3 days, that's a bit...
Yeah.
Does that relate to the 3 days of darkness?
Keep that thought for the Medea episode. I like where you're headed. Keep that thought for the Medea episode.
All right.
You're going somewhere. You're piecing it out. I respect that. So the entirety of Sage right now is hell bent on one thing, and that one thing is, in its entirety, to find a way to save the world. Because he has eccentric views, obviously. His peers are like, who the hell do you think you are? You sprouted out of nowhere. We're kind of figuring out who you are at this point. This and that. Probably they didn't know. They didn't even communicate with him a lot. He was, after all, called the oddball of the Ivory Tower. So Sage is not really, Rook's Maha Dehkia is not respected around the entirety of the society in which he is in. But he needs to still pick up the slack of his entire civilization. And that is something super, super important. And Sage decides to build a fortress. He decides to, at this point, be like, you know what? We are facing peril in 49 years. There is nothing we can do about it. He creates the idea of Atoraxian, a fortress which is supposed to be combated in different types of ways so that he can, and the entirety of the world can, withhold the Black Spirit invasion. This is the purpose of Atoraxian. So he travels the world by creating, looking for different types of knowledge. But prior to that, he creates the inner part of Atoraxian, which is super important. And the traveling of the world while studying the comment, he wants to desperately find people to assist him. His own people look at him weird. They don't believe him. They see him as some sort of a goof. But what he sees is that they have grown accustomed to their prosperity. What he describes is they have bountiful feasts, plentiful wine. They were in a paradise not about to be disturbed by some comet Rook saw about. No, they're being disturbed by Rooks. They see him as the issue, not the Dark Comet. He's like the doomsayer of some sort. He tells you, we are gonna perish. So the response of his people, in a typical way, is they imprison him for disturbing the so-called peace. They're like, dude, we're having a chill here. We're like...
He refers to them as the foolish masses.
Yes, and I'm gonna quote something here. Foolish citizens, when the comet descends and the invaders bring ruin to our world, when the temples collapse and the Ivory Tower burns, and your tears of regret wash over the split earth, I will come to save you. Which is kind of like, that's a little bit of, that's based. Despite the fact that you hate me, I'm still here for you. So,
because he vibes the Val.
Dude, for real, he does. So, this is something great of Sage if you think about it. That's a little bit of, okay, he's a hero. There's no sort of, he's not an antagonist. He's not left and right, this and that. So, he makes a thing known as Atoraxian and tasks himself with an incredible thing to create this fortress that would be able to fight the invaders. And inside, well, do you guys know what an Ator is?
Well, there's that big guy that walks through the desert, and you also see like some of them being dug up in Ulakita now. Yeah. I don't know if that's a Tor though. Maybe it's like the power core that's in him.
No, that's an Ator.
That's an Ator. So, okay. Grim, you know what's an Ator as well. So, how many do you think Sage has in Atoraxian? Just think about it for a bit. Okay, so we know one. Elezra is after it. It took a while to get to it. We have Ator shoes, which is built from a remnant of one. Considering the power structure, super important thing that is. How much do you think Sage has at his disposal? Zeth, any clues?
I think if you run around Ulakita, you see quite a bit of them, and I want to estimate that that's just a fraction of what he has. I want to say 100 or more.
All right, Grim, got any ideas?
It's about the same. I mean, you see remnants of them where the 3 days of darkness happens in Ulakita.
Cool. It is 100,000. He has 100,000 at his disposal, with the sole purpose of eventually, should all fall to crumbles, if we can't get to it, if we can't survive this thing, the Ators are to be unleashed and rain scorching earth upon our realm to potentially cleanse it, to find, you know, it's kind of like, I refuse to fall to you, I will fall at my own means, or how to even say this. It's denying the invaders. We will self-destruct rather. You know, it's kind of like some sort of a samurai type of stuff. We will never yield to invaders. We will take our own lives in a sense, which is a little bit of that. So, you know, we're talking about Atoraxian, we're talking about Sage. He is creating this core bit of it, which is known as Atoraxian. That is kind of like the centerpiece. And Sage travels. He travels a lot. And you know, we got to explain a little bit about what Atoraxian is in reality. So you guys have probably heard about 4 people, or at least heard those names. The name Vaha, Sika, Yolu, Orze. Ring any bells?
Yeah. Maha, yeah. I don't really recognize the other ones.
Yep. So we're going to go into those in particular. So here's what Sage does. Sage travels around the world, as Atoraxian is probably under construction or is being constructed. We don't know the details precisely about it, but he needs to find people to preserve knowledge with. He needs to find people so that should all hope is lost, there would still be some remnant of humanity. And he finds some very interesting individuals, specifically kids who are orphaned of wars, different types of wars. Those kids would be Vaha, Sika, Yolu, and Ors. So, you all know probably Vaha from, you know, Vaha's earring in Valmakea. That's pretty much a thing, a contraption of his, an idea of his. And Ors, girl.
Isn't that the new boss that we fight now?
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. Ors is indeed the new boss. So, in between, however, between Vaha and Ors are Sika and Yolo, and a little bit of characteristics for them so you get to understand a little bit more about them. Vaha is kind of like seen as the leader of all 4 of them. He is a steadfast, determined, he is like Dehkia's protege. Whatever the master says, I'm the guy. I am simply an extension of him. He is just that completely dedicated to it. The second one that joins the Atoraxian project would be known as Sika, who is a boy. Vaha is also a boy, by the way, but Sika is a little bit timid. He is a warm individual. He is a kind soul. He is cautious. He is very complex. He has a lot of inferiorities to him, and you know, you could call him pitiful at some times. The third one that joins the project is Yolu. Yolu is a female. She's a girl. She is a little bit of that, how can I say? Yolo is a little bit of that high school famous girl, super arrogant, demanding of attention. You know, she is attention seeking, she is manipulative, she's cunning. I wouldn't call her Machiavellian type in a sense, but she can, you know, she can emit some of those traits. She, good. Yeah, I think she's Hermione, yeah. And then we have the most important, at least in my opinion, member of the Dekimas, soon to be called, which are essentially the children of Dehkia, is Ors. And Ors is such a contrast upon anything, and there is a reason for this. Ors is stoic. She is zealous. She is a very dedicated individual, but driven by different things. Ors is not of this world, guys, because Ors is a Ganel. And as we already established from the past episode, yes, Ors is an elf. While the rest, we kind of don't know if they're ancients or humans or hybrids, whatever they are. They're kind of shown at the start looking a little bit like Shais, then grow up to look like kind of normal guys with just elongated ears for some reason. But yeah, this is something very important. They join the Atoraxian project recruited by Sage, and Sage would pretty much play to their feelings to such a miserable state, to the point where they would still follow him through, because they're in a predicament which is essentially almost certain death if they do not follow him. So that's not really much of a choice. Sage is going to use you in reality to do what he wants you to do. So the known biomes, or what we call the 4 dungeons of Atoraxian, is where we're kind of be talking about right now. So we all know about Valmakea, Sikrakea, Yulunakia, and Orzakea. So see, those bits are parts of the real world of Black Desert from a long time ago. So think of it like Valmakea is a copy of what Valmakea used to be. It is supposed to be something to transfer around Atoraxian and to save the culture. Think of it like this. It's pretty much it. So those orphans which Rooks recruited during the travels, they're people of ingenuity and strife. They all get named after the places which they're supposed to visit, and they're biomes which represent a copy of those original places. As I said, Valmakea, Secrakea, Yulunakia, and Orzakea. Yulunakia and Orzakea are pretty much almost the cradle of the world in which we are in right now. So they're not necessarily time capsules, though. That's something super important to note. They are a real thing, which is just a copy. They don't exist in a time slot of their own. They're just a copy of the places that have existed till this day because they're...
So like museum pieces.
Perfect! It's museum pieces. For the people that are familiar with 40k lore, it's Trazen the Infinite having entire galaxies at his disposal that would remain in stasis, or rather be tended to, so that they remain as they were. Like an expose, in a sense.
Yeah, exactly.
So, the entirety of Rooks' mindset right now is, okay, I found some people to help me up with this. All of them are tasked to do different things, but the end of this is to create weapons for the coming days, the 49 years. So they all joined throughout different time periods, which I am pretty sure we do not know at what time, but one thing is safe for sure, they came 1, 2, 3, and 4, Ors being the last one. So Rooks at this point is understanding that he will age and not be fit for the battle ahead, because he is already, in his 30s or like approaching his 40s, and this is 49 years ahead. You know, he isn't ancient.
What do you mean by that?
What do I mean by that? What do you mean?
Both me and Zeth are like 30, 40.
Oh, snap, fellas. I meant no offense. Well, we need to put a black spirit in you. That's going to prolong you for a bit. But, yeah.
Do I get to pick which one?
You get to pick which one. How many do you know, Zeth? Indeed. So we have the understanding that, yeah, Sage is going to perish by the time he goes, or even if he doesn't, he's going to be old. He won't be able to find any possible way to combat these guys. He'll be crippled, probably, etc. So he looks to find ways to prolong his lifespan in a way, all right? So he's like, you know what? It's going to be super cool if I can find a way to still be alongside my super young Dekimas, you know, the architects, because one of them is an elf. Presumably it's going to live for at the very least a couple of thousand. The other three are very interesting looking. There might be some sort of hybrids similar to, you know, what we have in Calphion, where we have human elves, etc., etc.
Oh, it always leads back to the elf breeder.
Indeed, it always leads to the elves breeding, dude. Someone banged an elf and I'm envious, is all I'm saying. But Sage is, you know, he needs to find a way to resolve this issue. So he creates an ingenious contraption known as the Kyve, and a process which is known as kyization. The kyization is a rather brutal thing, however, because the kyization is essentially, you know, it's not entirely said, but it's hinted that the kyization is a computer that needs to understand how to rebuild you, but the only way for it to understand that is for it to pick you apart. And here where we get into that grim, dark place, dude.
Yeah.
Because it kind of goes there. So Sage decides to proceed with the kyization process. He uploads his consciousness into the computer, but a consciousness is uploaded and it can be downloaded. But however, a body needs to be known how to be made, and we think that's what the kyization process of Sage actually is. So, you know, he decides to do something. You know, I can't let those kids here run alone into my ingenious fortress known as Atoraxian and all of the biomes. So before he goes into this, he leaves a copy of himself, which is known as Rooks, I think it's what they call him. They refer to Sage as the Master. That's what they call him. But the copy, I think they call Rooks. It's just like a pet name in a sense. Someone to guide them in times of need. And Rooks would have precisely what Sage has as memories. He would be it. It's going to be him. They wouldn't even feel the difference. Or at least this is what they thought. So In time, and bear in mind, we're talking about years on top of years before the 49 years, Vaha becomes obsessed with his weapons. I'm giving you a summary right now, guys, because to go into Atoraxian in detail is another different episode. And also, we shouldn't do this because in 2 weeks, we're getting the Gladios, which is the conclusion of the Atoraxian saga, which is like 6 years. So I'm super hyped for this, by the way.
Yeah.
So Vaha becomes obsessed with his weapons and starts to romanticize them in a sense. Like he goes super weird about it. He wants to fight as if he is a weapon. That's going to be a very important point, which we're going to get towards in the end. And, you know, what would happen when you put 3 kids that eventually become teenagers in their vicinity, and 2 are boys, 2 are girls? You know, I mean, they're going to start shagging eventually is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
They're gonna start shagging it eventually. So something very important here to say is that, of course, they develop feelings for one another like a normal thing. They grow up together. They're bored. You gotta think of this. The only people that they ever speak to is one another. They're locked into those places unless Sage sends them to recollect from the old kingdoms of the particular time, which is, of course, Valmakir, Secrekir, Yulnakin, or Zethiann, which he does at one point, but they return back. They're not locked in reality per se. They cannot leave. They can, but you know there is in front a mission, so they can't really stray away from this. Yolu is the the first girl which joined the third Dehkia, and Yolu sees Vaha as a leader. And they eventually start to obsess over one another in a different way. You know, Yolo kind of admires him. You know, he's the leader boy, the typical, oh, look at the female loving the guy who is, you know, at the pinnacle of it all.
He's
That's kind of, yeah, so precisely, literally. And she falls in love with him in a sense, but in reality, what she wants is his attention. She wants his undivided attention in that cheerleader types of way from a school that you would see. And Vaha, in comparison, he kind of, you know, Ors, my bad. Yolo is a beautiful woman. He sees her in a different way, but he doesn't get that click necessarily initially. He more or less kind of looks at Ors. In a typical way, Ors is a stoic person that doesn't give a crap about any of them. Kind of. At the start, she did, oh, look at this, we're kids, friends, and everything. But, you know, play hard to get is the best way to earn the guy, pretty much. And that's what she gets in reality. Ors is like super stoic, and he seems to be drawn to her. And nobody cares about Sika. Sika is a freaking loser. Like, seriously, Sika is out of the picture. He dislikes his own friends, his Dehkimas. He hates Atoraxian. He dislikes Dehkia to an extent, at least he does. And he feels like they're all super arrogant, and this is a whole catastrophe project in reality. And he's like, dude, I can't stand you guys. I hate you. I detest you. You guys are pretty much the complex individual in high school that pretty much hates all of his peers because nobody likes him, nobody wants to be friends with him. The only thing that he gets is pity. And his own Dehkimas, his own friends, call him the pitiful Sika. So this is going to be an important thing because Sage acknowledges this in him. And see, the Gladios, which we're going to get soon as a piece of content, is essentially a place of training, and it is also where those Ators are. And as Lesser says, the Gladios will open only at the blood of fierce competition, which is essentially the computer recognizing that the world is in a struggle. There's a fierce competition, and only then they will be released. So the developing romance between one another is like all of those Dehkimas. It's a triangle. It's a fashion like this. And while nobody gives a rat's ass about Sika, like he's kind of a loser. But, you know, time passes, and time around the arrival of the comet with the Black Spirit is about to take hold. All of those years have passed, right? And they're about to see it. Like, they see it. You look into the sky, and it's growing ever so red, ever so dark. The skies are ever so different. And nobody seems to, in the outside world, give a crap. So we have to mention something about Ors right now. Ors is a very important figure to know here. Earlier, as I asked you guys to, or rather Zethiann, to kind of check into this dark goddess, which I spoke about. See, Ors is a Ganel, and her goddess is very, very weirdly not Sylvia. See, Grimm will kind of know what I'm talking about right now, but Ors is all about the dark goddess, which, just so Zeth gets a little bit of an understanding, you know, the Kama Sylvian elves, they have Sylvia. Sylvia is everything for them. They are like, that's their goddess. The Ahibs, they have the dark goddess. And here's Ors being like a mirror to this. Ors is a Ganel that goes for the Ahibs goddess, essentially. Bear in mind, at that time, there are no Ahibs. That's going to be a topic for another time, though. So the time comes in to fight them, but see, Vaha wishes to fight. He wishes to become one of the weapons. He wants to be a part of this. He's prepared for this. He is so fixated on that particular prospect. But earlier into that entire Atoraxian saga, Yolo has become a sadist, a hateful and insane individual who wishes to torture the prisoners that are affected in the future of the Black Spirit. She is literally envisioning how she straps them and learns what they're made of. She grows ever so disgusting as a human being. And Sika is like, I really don't like you guys. You guys are horrible, and dips for multitudes of reasons beside of this. He dislikes the entirety of it. And Ors, well, she follows the advice of the Dark Goddess and totally neglect everything that Dehkia serves. She never leaves there to assist. And now we're going to talk about, you remember how we started this? Kaboo in year 286, where I read you a very important quote from Sage. Well, let's repeat it again. On a particularly bright and sunlit spring day, I stood atop a podium. My intellect astounded a countless number of youthful eyes that gathered before me. Then a pitch-black sky, ashen winds, blood-filled screams. The eyes of all life in the world were stained red. My eyes soon regained their golden light, and I found myself with youth that seemed eternal. Hold on a minute now. Didn't just Sage went into a phylactery type of thing to be torn into pieces and...
Yeah, this is Rux, right?
Well, is it Rux?
It might be the player.
Is it the player? Zed, got any clues?
I don't know. It sounds like maybe it's just a copy of itself.
All right, let's continue then with the lore. The fight for Atoraxian begins, but Rux is not waking up. He is still in the Kyve, presumably whatever the Kyve is perceived by the Dehkias. He made a mistake in the calculation, meaning that the invaders were to land a week earlier instead, and they were not fully prepared. So imagine it like this. You're fully prepping, you're Vaha, you're ready. Everybody is apparently in their biomes. Vaha at least thinks so, and they arrive 1 week early. And it goes tits up from there. Literally, the world is immediately engulfed into this darkness, which apparently Sage talks about, which is very interesting. And the fight instantaneously begins. Vaha rides at his ultimate weapon, and he begins to hold the front line. Vaha engages with the red-eyed ones. Sika, nowhere to be found. He is MIA. What's up, Zed?
Can I ask a quick question? Yeah. So you're mentioning Vaha rides his ultimate weapon. Is that dinosaur thing in the Vaha wing?
Precisely. See, in Atoraxian, the final weapons, the final bosses are essentially the greatest weapons of the Dekimas. That is what they are. I think it was called Ulukrios or something like, I forgot its name. It's a relevant name, which I shouldn't have forgotten, but yeah, those are it. So Vaha engages with the red-eyed ones. Sika is like missing in action, and Vaha stands alone. And he's like defying all expectations for such a predicament. He protects alone for days. Now, think of it like this. They are 1 week short. And what they're saying is, eventually, is that Sage would arrive as well. All they need to do is hold for 4 days. That's all they need to do. And Vaha is alone because of all of the drama that's been happening, because of all of the triangles and everything like this. He stands alone, defying all expectations. He protects alone for days. All they need to do is hold for a week, and Dehkia would arrive. So there is a particular place where the voice actor in the game does such a good job at expressing what was in Vaha's mind at that time. And if you guys ever go throughout, I think it was Yolunakia, the particular time where Vaha expresses himself like this, and it's almost bone-chilling to hear it. He goes into a full-blown sensitive, like, panic mode, and he says, "We need backup, help, Ors, Yolo, I beg of you, help." And it falls on deaf ears. Yolu is like, I'm too good for you, honey boo boo. I'm not interested. Sika is MIA, and Ors is all about her goddess, which conveniently told her, do not leave Atoraxian. Don't be there.
Convenient.
Very convenient. So, all of a sudden, as this entire thing is going on, at the defense mechanism of Atoraxian, like the base of Atoraxian, Vaha is forced to retreat. The computers start to just bulk the entirety of the information. It's like Biome 1 has fallen, Biome 2 has fallen, Biome 3 has fallen. All of it is crumbling to pieces. Like you see Atoraxian, there's a brilliant cutscene, so well animated, and you see Atoraxian literally shaking to its core. It's crumbling apart, and we don't want it to crumble apart, because if it crumbles apart, the 100,000 Ators leave and literally fuck shit up. This is the entirety of it. So all of a sudden, amidst the entirety of the drama and the conflict, the invaders are in. They're destroying everything. Something very important happens. A stranger breaks into the main chamber of the control mechanism of Atoraxian and engages with the soul magia. And the machine responds as such. Fingerprint match complete. Iris match complete. Voice ID match complete. Blood analysis match complete. Physiological trait analysis complete.
So it's safe to say Sage from another timeline arrived.
Hold on a minute. Kyve pulse energy analysis. You literally got at the end of it. Kyve pulse energy analysis complete. Recognition. Accuracy of 99.895% match. And the machine utters, and this is one of the most badass moments in BDO, I swear to God. The machine utters towards that stranger, welcome back, Rook's Maha Dehkia, great master of all mankind. That is like
character than that.
That is like literally such a cool way to put an intro on it.
Is that part of the Magnus questline? I feel like there was something similar to that during the Magnus.
No, that's not a Magnus. That's in the Yolunakia, the cutscene, kind of like in the middle of the entire Yolunakia questing. You get to see it there. So,
okay. Maybe I'm confusing it.
No worries. So the machine acknowledges this as an anomaly, though, because what the machine knows is, okay, Master is in the Kyve. Who the hell is this guy? And now we remember, okay, he did leave a clone, didn't he? But that clone is MIA. That clone is nowhere to be seen. That clone is presumably back into the Kyve. It fit its purpose. So now, this is a very important piece of understanding Sage lore, and this is literally the cradle of the entirety of the thing. The machine acknowledged an anomaly is happening and decides to continue a protocol which is called, conveniently, Second Coming. Now, what does that tell you guys?
You planned all along.
Second Coming, which is a hilarious name to me personally, because it kind of like is the second coming of Christ. It's kind of playing with
BDO
religious...
Jesus, I was just thinking that.
BDO Jesus, indeed. And Sage does, the one which we see, he does something very interesting. The acknowledge of the machine is like, okay, Sage is here. You know what's the best thing for me to do? I would just fuel the reconstruction of Sage, because apparently all of it is good and we might just continue with the protocol. I mean, that's what the machine does. Sage yoinks the power source, which is a blackstone. Everything is powered by a blackstone, and leaves.
Yeah, this is in the entries too about missing the blackstone.
Yeah, Sage steals the power source and leaves, and uses the knowledge to save mankind to the extent in which he could. And that is pretty much the ending of what Sage does in Atoraxian. And here's the next part of the story. Remember how we started this? Kabuan year 381. Sage finds himself left by the Black Spirit and dies. And the next part of the story is Kabuan year 237. He wakes up, he doesn't remember anything. He finds about the meteorite, prepares Atoraxian, only to get in the Kyve and get in. And then Atoraxian is attacked. A Sage comes through, saves it, yoinks the power source, and goes back to save the world. He lives a long life and dies. Kabuan year 237. Sage wakes up, doesn't remember anything. How many of you guys figured out that Sage right now is in a loop?
It's pretty much.
So
It's like that film, right, where the guy dies and he loops back the day.
have you watched Predestination?
That
Any
might
of
be
you?
actually.
Yeah.
Um,
Predestination is a brilliant movie which tackles the topic of what is first, the chicken or the egg. This is Sage. Sage is a living paradox. He is the chicken and the egg, yet neither. And he is in a loop to constantly do this because of his train of thought, because of what happens, because of everything that he is. So the train of what Sage is predetermined fate to live forever in this without him understanding it for his brilliancy of mind. This is that grim dark aspect of it, because he is as if cursed by it. And welcome to Sage lore. Now, some of you might be like, okay, well, what happens from now on, right? Because how do we play Sage? It's a very, very adequate question. Well, there is a little bit of a person in this game, which we all like and we all wish to know what they do. A very enigmatic, white cloaked figure, super sexy, has white hair and a staff.
Yeah, we know.
She's all over the place. She is as redundant as you possibly could get redundant. And of course, Elezra comes through in the entirety of the situation. So, see, how does one break fate? How does one get out of this loop? Because think about it, Sage cannot escape it. Now, I'm just reading this and essentially expressing it as he is in a loop. We do not know if he necessarily repeats this twice, but it is a loop nonetheless. No matter how much you go through it, it is a loop. He is in that loop. And a very important thing here to understand is that someone has a plan for him. Someone knows of this loop. See, remember when I told you that Sage yoinked that black stone? Before we talk about that, before we talk about this, let's talk and just go into the details here. Not that Sage is one. At all times, there are two Sages, and they all go and follow their own tracks as if they're yin and yang rotating. You guys understand? It's like Sage 1 goes after Sage 2, Sage 2 goes after. It's the moon and sun chasing one another. This is what their entire thing is. So Sage continues to do this because he yoinks the power source, which restrains the Sage, which of course creates Atoraxian for him to find what is going on. That's one of the cool things, is that Sage 2 creates Atoraxian that Sage 1 gets inside of in order for them to be able to save the entirety of the world. And this is the chicken or the egg came first, because without Atoraxian being made by the second Sage, which is in fact the first one, you can never have first Sage, which is in fact the second one. That's like the funny thing of the entirety. So
how would this relate to going back in time when they do the new content?
Someone is listening. Remember, Grim, Zeth hasn't probably got to this part in the podcast. I think at one point, at least, I think I said how the Idania and everything, that PA said that we're going to go 1,000 years earlier into the past. Well, if you die and you have a black spirit and that sends you in the past, well, we have a black spirit. Now, maybe we're going to lose the fight there. Maybe. Who knows? Maybe. That's the theory. That's the theory, at least for now, that we're going to lose. Everything points towards that direction. So, Elezra is a different types of a persona here. And before we jump into her, to kind of talk a little bit about Ors and what happened in Atoraxian, because Elezra and Ors are seen together. And after all, that's 8,000 years. See, when the Dehkimas finally managed to get back to Atoraxian and kind of talk about what happened, they started throwing tantrums against one another. It was like a whole scandal, and Maha, who is their leader at the time, did something so unbelievably stupid that doomed them in reality. Maha picked up a sword almost as if to cut through Yolu or Sika, and purposely missed and hits the soul magia, which locks them inside the inner sanctum without any means of escape. So, something so stupid to do, and what awaits them is a slow and painful death. They have only a limited supply of food, they have nothing that they can do. So, this is one of the dark things, a little bit of a sensitive topic. They think about taking their own lives. And they looking for ways to do it as painlessly as possible. And Vaha knows about the kyization process in detail. So Vaha is like, you know what? I think the most decent thing that we can do, considering what type of a fuck up we've been altogether, is to perhaps lock ourselves in a stance and be awoken when, you know, humanity needs us for whatever reason. Perhaps they might in the future. And they're like, okay, it's better to do this than starve to death, and it's a horrible ways to go. And what they do is they go throughout the kyization process. And Vaha, being a little bitch, you know, earlier what I told you, that he dreams about being one with his weapon.
Oh no. What do you do?
No. He basically, whether or not on his own accord or not, Vaha transfers sentiency towards the final bosses in Atoraxian, all except Ors, because Ors' dark goddess prevented it. The final boss of Atoraxian 1, 2, and 3 that we kill are in fact the Dehkias. And that is the horrid part of their lore, how their end was entirely based on almost as if a betrayal by their leader. The kyization process is essentially transferring your own psyche, leaving your body behind, into those weapons. When the weapons are defeated, your psyche goes poof with them. So if any hopes are out there that we're ever going to meet those 3 first ones, unfortunately, well, they are poof.
We kill them. We kill them every week.
Every week. Every week. So Elezra and Ors have a meeting. And how is this related to Sage is not that much necessarily in relation, rather that, see, Elezra has a very big motto. She's like, I wish to sever fate. Well, she's the one that freed Sage. She is the one that brought the Black Stone back. She is the one that fired up the machine again. And here comes, well, I guess player 4 has entered the chat, your Sages. This is you. You are essentially almost as if a production of Elezra, or rather her going back and breaking the cycle of Sage. In reality, that's kind of it. So it doesn't end here though for Sage, because, you know, Sage goes out not remembering anything, similar to the story how, you know, he revives after dying and nothing is happening, it's a loop. Well, Sage wakes up, goes out of the cave, and he's like, what the hell is this? Where am I? I don't know anything. He just glimpses. He travels along the world, meets Elezra, where in the similar fashion, basically Sage right now is a main character, gets betrayed in Histria. A black spirit finds us, gives us that life, and we proceed to go into Atoraxian in modern time, where your Sage inherits the memories from the cave of Sage 1 and 2, and becomes a Chad and a half. He bears the memories, knowledge, ingenuity of every one of those sages all together. He is the Alpha and the Omega. He is it and not it. He is literally, almost figuratively speaking, a creature that can be an upstart god based on what he knows. He is profound in nature. He understands the black spirit, yet he doesn't wish to tell us anything about it, as if he is withholding something. So this is that main character syndrome with Sage, because right now he is on a whole new level, and it's why I did that lore tier list some time ago. Sage is God mode.
Yeah, God
Sage,
mode.
completely God mode. He is completely God mode. So, what is the future holding for him? Well, Gladios will be something super important, and there is one thing left hanging right now in Sage's lore. Where is that 3rd copy? I want you, Zethiann, because you're right now live streaming, but of course all of our listeners would not be up there to see it, but still, I will show it for them into the later edit. I want you to check in what says on the Kabua fragment, because I know you have one of them equipped right now, won't you? Just read
an artifact of King Kabua, who voluntarily chose to rest eternally with his kingdom by turning himself into a Kiev.
That's very isn't it? Mm-hmm. So not only is the 3rd Sage probably kind of like missing the copycat, the one which Rook's basically left behind to say something about the Dehkias and just to be like a tutor to them. Not only did he disappear, but all of a sudden this Kabua artifact shows about some king who decided to become a Kabul, and all of a sudden we're following a Kabulan calendar. Isn't that funny from 8,000 years ago?
It raises so many questions.
Are you ready for the second loop?
Yes, yeah.
Probably is. Now, of course, this is all theory. Right now we have no idea. And Gladios will tell us so much. Gladios will be the finale of Atoraxian, and also will be kind of like the closure of Sage. It will be everything that we know. It will be, is he free of the loop? Probably. What will Elezra tell us? And most importantly, remember earlier when I told you it's very important to know about the Dark Goddess. And it's very important to remember Elezra. I hope you guys understand how impactful Elezra is. How many of those loops are in the game? How many characters are like this? She is freeing almost all of us from a fate, as if we were in some sort of a matrix. Like it's coded for us to go throughout the entirety of the thing. How much is there free will when fate is there, right? That's a very big question. And see, when Or speaks to Elezra, she sees something horrible about her. See, Ors is blessed to see the dark invaders without them being to you. Our own black spirit is only visible to us, right? So she sees Elezra with hundreds of them. Hundreds, uncountable amounts of them. So this is
this the ones she absorbed in history?
And many more. Who knows when and how many and where she found them. She has plenty of them. But see, in the Or's cinematic, she says something. All of this is for the plan of the Great Mother. And Elezra replies, yes, in mine. So this is a profound thing. And then Ors turns and looks at her and says, you are weird. Elezra replying, you weren't like this when you were little. Ors has been in communication with the Dark Goddess since child. Coincidentally, the Dark Goddess is voiced by Elezra. Elezra is the Dark Goddess, probably. So, this is an entity of, at the very least, 8,000 years ago, which implies heavily what's going on in Black Desert right now. And that Elezra is just having to play a very big game. And for now, this is the end of Sage's lore, but it will probably be revived in 2 weeks or like 1 week when Gladios launches. So, how did you guys find it? Cool. I think it was cool.
I liked
it was great. I got some questions though.
Go ahead.
Where does the Kybalius come into this? Do you know about the Kyve?
Kyve is basically a contraption of Sage. Kybalius is recovered an ancient spear from the times of old, and it's the prized possession of that particular time. It's a very important artifact. You know, awakenings are always borrowed power, and Sage Awakening in reality is, okay, you know what? I just inherited so much, why not have literally the most powerful weapon of old, that at least to that civilization at the time. That is basically what the Kybalius is.
So I have the Kybalius, the ancient spear, here in my inventory. And it says, a Kybalius spear revived with the power of an ancient black spirit. It is also a key to the artifact in the Cockroach Chamber.
Yes, that's a part. I think that was a part of the Valencia quest chain of old. We're waiting for a rework on that in the distant future, possibly. So for now, it's canon, but it's kind of hanging up there. And I don't wish to kind of complicate it. But yes, Kybalius, the ancient spear, is kind of that.
Okay, so is this also why Elezra is so keen on giving us succession, so not rely on borrowed power?
Precisely, yep. Elezra is, you know, awakenings are tied to borrowed power, which essentially is not us. That is Elezra's shtick in a sense, you know. Put that borrowed power away. Think of Mystic and Banha, like that's a deity empowering her. How about you become that powerful entity? How about you go into your succession? That is you. You do not need to depend on godlike powers or gods. You can become strong individual. At least this is the theory behind the entirety of it. So
it's canon. The suck sage is the true sage.
Ah, you little. Here's the thing. Which sage is the true sage, Grim? You know, it's like he lives in a loop. It's everything that he is. You know, you can never guess which one is it. All right, fellas, last bit for questions. Do you got anything for me?
Just a comment. Kind of feels
Yeah.
like Elezra is like Morpheus from the Matrix, and we're just all pawns, and she's putting us all into place right now.
That is probably a very big part of her inspiration. She is indeed pawning us into figuring out how to break throughout this reality in which we are in. And everything hints towards her being not just some simple weird traveler. Like, she is probably capable of time traveling. You know the theory of the wormhole? It's like time and space, curves and bends, and eventually it's going to curve to the point where you can probably create a passage between the curvatures to the point where you cross them. But this means that crossing into one or the other means going back or forwards in time. This is like one of the things and theories about astronomy, my bad. So the entire idea of Elezra is that perhaps she is so much more than meets the eye. And her being the dark goddess, or rather the dark goddess telling you to not really do anything bad to the black spirits, to let Atoraxian fall so that this cycle kind of breaks through, that's very interesting. And then Elezra does precisely that, and she has so many of them. And then she says to Ors, when Ors says, I do this in the name of Mother, and she says, yes, in my name. And that's like weird. And then acknowledging Ors from 8,000 years ago. You weren't like this when you were little. You've changed. You've grown up. That's just so crazy. It's just profound to say something like this. So, yeah, fellas, it was nice having you. It's a very good episode. And thank you so much for being here, Zeth. I hope it was entertaining for you, dude.
No, it absolutely was. Definitely gave me a little bit more depth to my knowledge of Sage. I enjoyed it.
Thank you so much, dude. So, everybody can find Zethiann over on his Twitch stream /Zethiann with a double N. Of course, links are down below. My good friend Grimmkill as well down below. You can find him on Twitch /Grimmkill. And me over at The Verdict Loves You, or, of course, this channel here, which is a me and Grim type of jazz. Thanks so much for stopping by, guys. Love you. See ya.
Thank you.